Good morning. Good morning. All right, we have people jumping on the webinar and on the telephone line. Let's give everybody some few minutes to jump on, and we'll jump into the first training. So how's everybody doing this morning?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Awesome. That AJ, how you doing?
Oh, I'm ready to go, John. I'm
Awesome.
happy to be here.
Looking forward to it too. And is that Jonathan on the?
That's me. Yes, that's me. Hey.
Hey, Jonathan, how you doing?
Doing good. I'm excited. Let's do this, right?
Yeah, we are too. It's this is going to be fun. So we got people logging in on the phone line and on the webinar. Good.
How's the weather in Nashville?
You know, it's a beautiful day here in Nashville. It's a little cool, but the sun is still peeking through. So it's a great time of year.
Yeah.
So let's we want this to be interactive. So as people are jumping on, AJ, why don't you take a minute and tell us about yourself, and we'll just kind of go around, whoever wants to share a little bit about what they've done, maybe what they're most proud of today.
Sure. So I grew up in Connecticut. I split my time between the East Coast and Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
I've been writing songs since I was 10 years old. I have 5 CDs out.
Excellent.
And I'm constantly writing. I've written a lot of songs. Of course, I didn't all release them, but
Sure.
my passion is performing and getting my music out to as many people as I can.
Yeah.
Once this COVID thing lifts, I'll be back in Nashville, but right now I'm in Connecticut. We have some strict restrictions, so I'm staying put for now, but I'm doing some live streams. I have a concert coming up in a couple of weeks. That's my very first live stream that I'm excited about. I've been selling tickets, so I'm trying what I can, you know. But yeah, I would love to get my music out there nationally and just really make a sustaining living off of my music and music in general.
Yeah.
So,
fantastic. And it's kind of country, outlaw country is kind of.
That's right.
Brand.
Yep. That's right. Outlaw country. Yeah.
Great. All right. Jonathan, you want to?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump right in here. Well, my background is in theater primarily.
Mm-hmm.
And so right now that's really at a halt.
Yeah.
So that's why this class is very interesting to me, because just looking at different resources and other things to do to kind of add, you know, when you're a performer, it's all about seeds in different places.
Right.
So yeah, but honestly, like just reading the first 40 some pages, I can already apply it to the theater actually, because it's business, and looking at it as a whole, it's like, oh, I never thought of it that way, and oh, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that.
Awesome. And Jonathan, you're based out of where?
New York City. I'm in Queens right now.
Nice.
Right.
Right. All right. So
yeah.
Yeah, you're not
sort
far
of.
from me.
No, I'm not.
That's great. All right. So we've got people calling in and on the webinar here. So let's go ahead and get the party started. So today's training, I'm super excited about it, guys. Whether you're on the phone or online, this is the first kickoff module for the Hacking Music Masterclass training. So this particular module is all about laying the foundation. Maybe the first 2 modules, as people are still jumping on here, are about laying the foundation. So this is going to be about unplugging some of the limiting beliefs and magical thinking and myths that have really become too prevalent in the music and media marketplace, and really build that foundation that we can build on in all the upcoming modules. So this may be a little more mental and focused on some of our mindsets, than it is tactical. But the upcoming modules will definitely be more tactical and strategic. So it is said that great artists build on solid foundations. And here our focus is helping artists remove some of the BS limiting beliefs and unplugging from the magical thinking that is all too prevalent. So in this module, we've got a ton of stuff here that we're going to try to get through. So you definitely want to kind of put on your headphones and tune out everything else. We're going to move fast because we really want to add a ton of value to all our practitioners of the Hacking Music System. So today we're going to talk about your brand words. All right, people are still jumping on here. We're going to talk about brand words, and we're going to do a couple exercises that really set in place kind of where we're going to land 3, 5, 10 years from now. We're going to talk about knowing thyself, your superpowers. This is important because you can't build a team until you know yourself. So we're going to, we have 3 sections on that. We're going to do an artist audit that really kind of takes your temperature for where you are, which helps us kind of build out from there. Section 4 is we're going to look at the 3 gears: develop, deploy, and dominate. The 3 gears that all artists go through in their career. We're going to look at the entertainment ecosystem, who does what in the system. This is really helpful in knowing who the players are and in moving out of playing checkers into playing chess. We're going to look at content versus platform and what that balance looks like for healthy artists, successful artists, as opposed to kind of baby developing artists. And then moving on, we're going to look at the time and talent matrix. We're going to look at strategy and tactics. 5 silver bullets if we have time. I know we talked some about that on the welcome webinar. And then we're going to look at left brain, right brain, whole brain artists and learning versus doing. So we're going to try to get through as much of this as we can on this training session. And if we don't get through it all, we may bump some things to the next module. So a little bit of housekeeping first before we jump in. So on each training module, here's what you can expect. We're going to do the training, which will last, an hour to an hour and a half. We're going to have action items for each module. These are the, people are still jumping on here. These are kind of the go away. I hate the word homework, but these are the things that really you're going to complete before the next session. These are things that we'll talk about on the masterclass, but you'll go and do these things. Some of those I'll ask you to send me those results because I want to know kind of how you're tracking. But these are the tasks that you'll go away and complete here in the next 2 weeks. And then the IQ points. These will be out, like videos, PDFs, extra content that kind of supports and strengthens what we're talking about on the particular module training. So, and this is something that's really important. I want you to be, we believe in total participant involvement. So we want this to be engaging. We want to hear your questions. We want to build a community. We want this experience to be really rich and not just, me telling you what to do. I want you to engage in that and really be open and honest. There'll be action items that I do expect you to complete. You guys have, everybody on this webinar, the 30-some people on the webinar right now, you're ready to compete at a higher level. This hacking music is not for baby artists. It's for artists who have put some points on the board, but are not content with where they are. So I want you, your involvement includes doing the action items and really collaboration. If you see other artists in the Facebook group or on the training here who you want to connect with, this is what it's about. We want to multiply your talent. That is kind of our mission statement here at Jetpack. So our goal here is 3 deep. We want to increase knowledge. Personally, we want to help those in the music marketplace fill their gaps in a way that leads to greater success. Historically, much of this knowledge has been locked up. The gatekeepers really don't want you to know the real game being played, because that would kind of change their leverage. So we want to add IQ points, mindset, and really create a healthier worldview for artists. It's right brain people succeeding in a left brain world. Second is strategy. We want to help those in the music marketplace understand and implement and see the importance of strategy in seeing that map forward. Many artists, especially baby artists, get stuck golfing in the dark, trying to get lucky or win a contest. Hacking music artists develop a clear strategic roadmap that they execute against. This helps them not only create better music, but to strengthen their focus across all the moving parts of the career. And thirdly is execution. And this is maybe the most important. If you're limited in your knowledge and you can't understand strategic thinking, if you just get used to this, the idea of executing and shipping and completing, you'll win in your career. So this is really kind of the superpower for artists in the future. So we want to help music entrepreneurs really better execute against the strategies and manage the projects that everybody's working on. We want to help you do more faster. And we're going to look at each module has, some of the most powerful plays in the music and media space that we'll be sharing some of those plays. So, and really it's not to create a better monster executing. We want to help you free up creative time to really be writing and doing the fun stuff that artists love and that our audiences need from us. So knowledge, we want to make you smarter. Strategy, we want to give you more of a vision. And execution, we want to help you do more faster. So the focus of this training visually looks like this. This is something that kind of summarizes the hacking music system. We have baby artists on the top who are trying all things, trying to be all things to all people, and really confusing how they build their career. They're confused in how they're building their career. So we want to unplug from the artists at the top, the way they think, and move down to the bottom. We want to help them shift into a very different way of thinking and executing. And full disclosure, we're out to move as many artists from the top to the bottom. Our mission is to multiply talent, and the reality is that we've lost a lot of great artists. So we are expecting you to step into those shoes and fill some of those big shoes. And those are big shoes. Prince, Waylon Jennings, Mac Davis we lost this week. There's a lot of great artists that we've lost. And as an industry, we are big believers in believing that we need to do a better job of replacing those artists with healthier artists, more integrated artists, more profitable artists. So let's move on to the next section here real quick before we jump into the training. So let's look at how hacking music works. Hacking music is a training system that helps ambitious artists upgrade their mindset and transform their music and careers into lean and mean powerhouses. It's not meant for the faint of heart. It's not meant for people who need group hugs. It's meant for people that want to compete at a higher level. So everybody on this training right now is kind of committed to competing at a higher level across the creative stuff, across the strategic stuff, the execution stuff, all the roadmaps and habits of headliners that we're going to be talking through over the next 12 modules. So this originally started off as just a binder that we would collect things over the last 15 years. We collected some of this high value tools and frameworks for our team internally. Then it turned into a course at Belmont, and it was launched about 18 years ago or 18 months ago at Harvard University. And now we're sharing that through artists to artists in Great Britain, Scotland, North America, with the training system that we're talking about here today. So, and this is the heart of hacking music. It's no bullshit. It's real world and it's actionable. We're not about spamming you on Facebook. We're not about, really being your guru. We want to help you. We want to strengthen what you do, but we're not about some of the bullshit that we see on Facebook that kind of makes us throw up in the back of our mouth. So there are three primary drivers of results, and those are luck, strategy, and actions. Okay, let me say that again. Your luck, which is randomness, your strategy, which are your choices, and your actions, which are your habits. What we're going to be focused on are the bottom two here. Okay, yeah, you're going to need some luck. You'll be lucky and you'll be unlucky, and sometimes we can't control that. But what we can control, and what you're going to be increasingly implementing and controlling, are these bottom two things: your strategy and your actions. Okay. So this is something we say often. Songs change, production changes, gear changes, technology, platforms change. Hacking music is about what doesn't change. We purposefully really set out to create something that's like, look, does hacking music work across all genres? Hip hop, country, rap, EDM, whatever your genre is. That was kind of the filter that we ran hacking music through. Is, does it apply cross genre and cross decade? So wherever you are, is this true today as well as 20 years ago? And so everything we're going to be talking about kind of met the two criteria there. And additionally, hacking music is not about your instrument. It's not about your chords. It's not about the creative widget that you're creating. You can handle that, right? You can learn that on YouTube. You can learn that in a music school. You got that covered. What is tricky and sometimes convoluted is the back engine office, the platform building of a career. And that's where we're focused on. Yes, it's going to overlap in this Venn diagram. We're going to touch on the super song section that does overlap with music. But for the most part, you're going to make your music, right? Hacking music is about that engine, that back office engine behind it that supports, strengthens, and sells your music. And visually, it looks like this. There's the habits of headliners, force multipliers, and frameworks that we're going to be talking about, dozens of each of these. And it's a little bit like gravity. It's the natural law. You don't have to fake it. You just keep implementing these things over time consistently, and they compound over time. It's a little bit like a propeller on a helicopter. You keep doing the right things over time, and the right things happen to you. Your career starts to build momentum. So with that, let's jump into section 1 of the training for today. So let's begin with the end in mind. This is your brand words. And also, as you've gotten the book, and we've had a couple new signups that haven't gotten the book yet, so you'll see some variation in the table of contents. We're ordering things a little bit differently, so you'll see some variations in the table of contents. So let's begin with the end in mind and fast forward 3 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out. We're going to begin with kind of a squishy word. Branding can be a little, what the hell is branding? It's different things to different people. So we're going to put some shape to it and put some steps to it to where we can really say, okay, this is my brand. This is where I want to go over the next 3, 5, 10 years. And this is something we get very deep with our private clients here at Jetpack. So let's do a little kung fu and reverse engineer your brand. So it's easy to look back on developed brands once they're in the wild, but it's kind of tricky looking forward in order to better create yours. So what we're going to do here, we're going to do 3 things. We're going to reverse engineer the King of Pop, Michael Jackson's brand. And then we're going to pattern match against artists in your genre. And then we're going to map your brand words for you personally as an artist. So those are the 3 kind of bits, the parts of this section here. So, and it really helps us answer a very important question. What's the difference between the person you want to be and the person you are today? Let's say that again. What's the difference between the person you want to become and the person you are today? This is going to help us answer that question. in some interesting ways. So Jeff Bezos said this about brand. He said, your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. So let's think through a brand here. So this is from the book here. So what is a brand in music? It is a thing or things by which people identify an artist. This can range from the artist's genre of music to their unique look on stage, to something they wear on a consistent basis, to their involvement in helping a cause or a mission or something they believe in. It can be any one of those examples or a combination of all of them. Some aspects of what make up an artist's brand can be deliberate and thought out on purpose, or it can be natural and organic and just happen by accident, okay? It's common for an artist to discover that their view of themselves, their own music, and on a larger scale, their own brand is completely different from the views and perspective held by their fans. So make no mistake, you can do everything possible to influence what your brand is. But at the end of the day, your fans' perception of you, your music, your personality, your public persona will dictate the definition of your brand. Okay, so what that means is that in the wild, once you have a defined brand, once you're Tim McGraw, Taylor Swift, you really can't control your brand. You can do some things, but it's really defined. But while you're developing, a developing artist, you can control it. So developing your brand is, quite frankly, one of the less flashy and sexy parts of the music and media business. A lot of artists don't put much thought into it early into their careers because they are more focused on the creative aspects of making the music and performing and recording, all the fun stuff. However, smart artists find it an integral component for creating a solid foundation for their business, because it provides the artist and their team with a guide that will lend consistency to career decision making. Developing a brand happens over a period of time and requires thinking differently about the artist's business. Okay, so some examples here. So the artist is responsible for training their audience in how and what to think about them. So branding can range from sounding different from other artists of their time. You could think of David Bowie or Rush, to looking different. Lady Gaga, Kiss. Part of your brand can be physical. You can think of Roy Orbison's sunglasses, Madonna's rubber bracelets she wore early on in her career, Freddie Mercury's mustache, Steven Tyler's scarves, Michael Jackson's gloves, Johnny Cash's all black wardrobe. But what's really interesting and powerful are the non-material things. These are the things that really have a powerful effect on your brand. Frank Sinatra's fans thought that he was the epitome of cool. Taylor Swift's fans always thought of her to be accessible. So the center of a brand are the non-material things that contribute to your brand. All right. So these are non-material things: tone, spirit, mission, and passion. These are some of the non-material things that, as we're going to be making those decisions about what our brand is, that are really powerful. So yes, it's easy to look back on developed brands, and it's tricky looking forward to better create yours. So let's reverse engineer our friend here, Michael Jackson. So King of Pop, we're all familiar with him, whatever genre you're in. The question we're going to ask is, what are his brand words? And you can write these, take some notes and spitball what you think his brand words are. The brand words are this. These are the defining words that act as decision-making filters for not only your music, but your messaging, your lyrics, the moments within your show. All these should flow from and support these words. Okay? So think of Michael Jackson. And feel free to send these on the text here as well. I see some people already sending those. That's great. What are some words that you think were Michael Jackson's defining words? His brand words reflect the following elements here. So for the sake of time, I'll just kind of step through a few of these as you're thinking through this. So first is performer. Yes, he was an amazing dancer, but when he got on stage, he turned into a different person. He operated at a higher level. His fans connected with him in a really magical way. So all his decision-making, from songs to lyrics to messaging to sponsorships, all were filtered through this idea of a performer. He is a super performer. So this would be one of his brand words. Brand word number 2 would be star image. The image of Michael Jackson in sunglasses and his red leather jacket from Beat It is a video that's just kind of etched in people's memory. The fedora he regularly performed in is now held in the Smithsonian National Museum of American History. This word, this idea of a star image, everything was filtered through. Whether intentionally or on purpose, we don't really know. But he, looking back on it in hindsight and reverse engineering his brand words, this is one of the components that everything was filtered through. Quincy Jones knew it. Michael Jackson knew it. His stage director knew it. His dancers knew it. This was core and a center to his brand. Next brand word would be extravagance. Okay, his shows were far beyond those of other entertainers. He had a reputation for extravagance that permeated every aspect of his life, from building Neverland on his property to the feature spectacle that was the video of Thriller. All his decisions flowed from this word extravagance. Next word, brand word, would be harmony. Okay. MJ was a powerful advocate for racial harmony and world peace. He may not have kind of spoken from this all the time, but it kind of was that undercurrent, that, again, that internal core of his brand. All his decisions kind of supported and strengthened this idea of harmony for him as an artist and globally. Next brand word would be humanitarian. And I'm going to sip on a little coffee here as we talk through this. All right, humanitarian. He was highly regarded for his generosity in humanitarian efforts. He may not have hit on this every possible moment, but it was that undercurrent that came from his decision-making and flow through his music and messaging and moments. Humanitarian was one of his brand words. And lastly, the idea of global. He was known for affecting fans from all over the globe, not just in LA, not North America, but in China, Germany, Australia, all over. All his decisions, he was not a regionalized artist. So these are what we call the brand words for an artist like Michael Jackson. He was a performer, star image, extravagance, harmony, humanitarian, and global are all those kind of internal core words for Michael Jackson's brand. Okay. The interesting thing here, if you think about it, all these words were just as much a part of Michael Jackson's brand as his actual music. Maybe more important, what we listen to is his music, but all these brand words are what kind of strengthened, communicated, and elevated his music. Okay. So let's talk about patterning for a minute here. This is one of the plays that we're going to be talking about often throughout the hacking music training. Patterning is the process of building a map to the future you. It's the process of reverse engineering how other artists arrived there ahead of you. Okay? So it's a little bit like copying somebody, but it's much more strategic and smarter than just copying. We don't want you to be imitators. We want you to be innovators. But what we're going to do is we're going to pattern after the decisions they made and how they built their career to better help you kind of step behind them in their footprints. So, all right, so this is one of the action items that you're going to do here in the next 2 weeks. And I'll send this to you in the email following the course today or tomorrow morning. So what I want you to do in your genre, whatever your genre is, whether it's rap, hip hop, metal, country, whatever, doesn't matter. There are artists that are ahead of you in that genre. So I want you to pick somebody who's 3, 5, maybe 7 or 10 years ahead of you. Don't go too far out there. I want you to pick somebody who's like, you know, you can see in front of you, not somebody who's a legend and who's already in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This is somebody who you want to be in the next 3 to 5 years. And I want you to reverse engineer their brand. These words for them act as decision-making filters for them. It would have affected their music, their messaging, their show, their lyrics, what they look for, their imaging, the show moments. So I want you to take all the time you need here over the next 2 weeks and kind of deconstruct an artist who you want to study. Okay, so that's one of the action items for this section, the patterning brand words. You're going to deconstruct an artist and think about what their words are. Okay, so that's action item number 1. Action item number 2 is we're going to flip it and we're going to create your brand words. Some of this you may kind of have thought through a little bit already, but like we said earlier, branding is kind of squishy and hard to hold. So what we want to do here is really give us some handles to say, okay, look, this is what I want my brand to be. So what are the 9 words that will act as decision-making filters for you to really act as a filter for your music, your lyrics, your imaging, your clothes, your moments on at your show? All will flow from these brand words. Like there won't be, you know, anything out of left field. It's like, oh, I want to talk about aliens and UFOs, if that's not what's part of, you know, these 9 words. Or I want to talk about, you know, politics. All of a sudden, you're not just gonna, you can't go, these are some tracks, some limitations that are important to you as an artist. They have to be organic, they have to be believable. These are the things that you will die for, you'll fight for, and you'll create music for, and you'll build a career around. Okay, so these are the 2 action items. We have the patterning brand words for another artist you're patterning after, and then the brand words for yourself as the exercise. All right, so like Bezos, like Garth Brooks, like Taylor Swift, like Kiss, like Jimmy Buffett, Coheed and Cambria, Michael Bublé, you get to decide and control by making small decisions daily. Okay, that's part of how this gets baked into your career. Decide, develop, and control your brand. And lastly, brands don't naturally occur. This is something you have to work on over time. You have to get it right incrementally over the next number of years. This isn't something you're going to have done in 2 weeks. Okay, but what you're going to do is you're going to put that lens together that's going to act as a filter for you to kind of weed out the bullshit and the noise and say, no, this is what I'm about. These 9 words, okay, you're going to hold yourself to them. And this will change and grow. You're not going to get it right over the next 2 weeks, but you know, you think about this, you iterate, you bake it, you bake it into your DNA, and it grows and helps you really define what your brand is. So those are the 3 things on this section. We reverse engineered Michael Jackson. You're going to do a pattern match for an artist in your genre, and then you're going to map your own brand words. So that closes out this section of your brand words. So let's take a sip of coffee and move into section 2. All right, so this section is Know Thyself. Understanding your superpowers and maybe your kryptonite. So every artist has that stuff that they're really good at. They can kill. If you know those handful of things, 2, 3 things that you can be best in the world at. You don't have to get disciplined to do it. You can just do it at the drop of a hat, right? So the first step to building a great team is to understanding yourself and your strengths. Okay. This is important because in the team section, the super team section, we're going to be thinking about the other members of your team. Okay. So, so let's talk about these action items here. So there are 3 action items here under Know Thyself, and I'll send you the links to each of these. Some of these, if you may have run across before, maybe you've done a DISC test as you were growing up in high school. So this may be kind of a refresher course for some of us. But each of these tests will kind of tell you a little something different about yourself. The DISC temperament test will tell you kind of your which one of the 4 DISC temperaments you are. Really important as you're building a team and building a career and knowing what you're great at and knowing what you suck at. Okay. Nobody's great at everything. Nobody is, a Mozart here that can just change the world as a lone ranger. Teams win wars, teams build careers. So that's the DISC temperament quiz that I'll send you. The second test is the Strengths Finder quiz. I believe it's 40 strengths that all humans have. And this test will send you your top 5. We do this with all our artists, our private artist clients, as just a starting place. We want to know how they're wired, because the teams we build around them and the people we bring in around them are all a reflection of their core strengths. So lastly is the Myers-Briggs temperament test, MBTI. This one's a little more complex, but I want you to give yourself to it. Take the test. Has 16 different results. I happen to be an ENTJ, and part of the results that this will give you are other people in history who have your same Myers-Briggs temperament. Really important, again, as we're going to be thinking about building out your super team in module 7, I think it is. All right, so that is the Know Thyself section. There's really not a lot that we're going to talk about. All this you're going to go away over the next 2 weeks. And I believe each of these probably take 20 or 30 minutes. Take all the time you want. It's not about going slow. It's about getting this into your DNA. All right. So next section is the artist audit. Coffee break here. All right. The artist audit. So we like to do this a couple times a year. Because you're growing, you're changing, you're growing as an artist, right? So let's start this section with taking your temperature for where you are today. The artist audit is really the very first slice from the training, where we start with all our private client artists and partners here. Conducting this artist assessment with you and your team, if you have kind of that early team, is a hack that provides a ton of benefits. So the big thing is it helps you get and stay on offense. So as things get busier within your career, it's harder and harder for you to stay on offense, because you're taking care of business, you're taking care of housekeeping, you're being creative. You kind of get pushed back on your heels. So this is important for helping you get on offense and stay on offense. That's how it benefits you as an artist. For you personally, it helps you in a handful of ways. So let's talk about a couple of these. So for you personally, you get to exhale and quit beating yourself up because you're not able to do everything, okay? Through this 50,000 foot view of your career, you get to see all the moving parts of your career, adding clarity and decision-making for you as you grow and scale your career. So, and then for you as the artist, the creative artists, for your music, it helps you carve out and protect time spent on the creative part of your career. This is the fun stuff, the sexy stuff, the writing, the recording, etc. And for your team, it does something really important with this thing called alignment. It helps your team get clarity on priorities and filling gaps and communication across your team. And for your fans, it benefits them because your fans get to experience more of you for themselves. Beyond just the music part of it, they will get to step into you, the artist they love, in many new ways. So those are some of the ways this exercise benefits you. All right, so these are the 16 components of an artist's career, right? We'll step through each of these and give a quick definition of each. All right, so an important part of the artist is their show. Obviously in the pandemic, there's not a lot of that going on, but soon that'll open up. This is how your show happens, your moments, your experiences for your fans. Tour dates, who's responsible for tour dates? Revenues, what are the processes for organizing and tracking revenues? Digital footprint is a big one. Your web, your digital social media outposts. Songs, what are our processes for creating great, compelling songs? Recording, who's on our team? What are our processes for recording? Team, who's in the boat with you day to day? Maybe it's a manager, maybe it's an early believer, maybe it's just you, and that's okay. Who are your allies? E-commerce, what is our process for e-commerce? Brand, what's our process for brand? Merchandise, what's our process for building products that we can sell? Experience, how are we creating ways for people to experience what you do? Cirque du Soleil is the genius here. Yes, it's a circus, but it's way more immersive than just a circus. Image, what's our process? How are we doing on image? Co-writers, who are our relationships there? Most likely you're not a solo writer, and that's okay. Who are our co-writers? Who's helping us kind of strengthen that part of our career? Operations, what's our back office process, integrate administration look like? And lastly, data. What are our newsletters? How are we collecting data to better build a career? So this is a 50,000 foot view of the moving parts within a career. Okay, so here's how this works. I want you to grab 16 sticky notes, and I want you to write each word on a sticky note. And this is one of the action items for this module. So you write these words on sticky note, and you throw them on your wall, right? You can bring in your team in on this process. It helps everybody get alignment. Okay, and the lead question that I want you to ask is this: how are we on offense as it relates to each of these? How are we on offense as it relates to e-commerce? How are we on offense as it relates to digital footprint? How are we on offense as it relates to merchandise? And I want you to take all the time you need to do this. This is, the slower you go, the better result you get. And what I want you to do is I want you to force rank these. The highest at the top is what you're firing best at. The lowest on the bottom is what you suck at and you ignored. It's nothing personal. We're not beating anybody up. We're just taking an honest assessment of these moving parts within our career. We're not here to blow sunshine up your, you know what, we're here to make you better, make you more competitive as an artist. So you force rank these from the top on down, what's really working at the top, what's working maybe a little less down here, and what's working less and less down to the bottom. Here's an example of a recent one we did with one of our artists internally. We started out horizontal and we just kind of kept squishing it together to where it was, a vertical line. This is meant to be fun. This is meant to be very guerrilla, very conversational. It's meant to pull people together and to give yourself a time, spend a couple hours on this. you want to give yourself time to speak what you've really been too busy to talk about. Talk about the things that you've maybe ignored. You want everyone to speak here. If you've got, somebody who helps you or the early team, give everybody time to speak and force rank all these highest to the lowest. Okay, other questions that you want to ask is, okay, if we take digital footprint, let's just pull that out. Okay, so what's working on digital footprint? What's not working on digital footprint? Where's the breakdown on digital footprint? What's the solution for a better, smarter digital footprint? Where are the gaps on our digital footprint? Do we need to focus more here? Who do we know that can help strengthen this? You want to take 5 to 20 minutes on each of these. And the tendency here is to go fast and kind of get this done just so you can say it's done. But the slower you go, the more you will know. And that's really what's important here. And most importantly, don't be embarrassed by the stuff you suck at. You're going to want to avoid some of the embarrassing stuff. So if, merchandise isn't part of your conversation at all, don't beat yourself up. Just being aware of it will help strengthen that for you. Okay. Don't be embarrassed as things might be ignored or sucking. Okay. Does that make sense? So again, the slower you go, the more you will know. Take all the time you need to do this. So that is the artist audit section, section 3. So let's move forward into the 3 gears of an artist's career. Coffee break. All right, so the 3 gears of an artist's career. So one of the mantras you'll hear often at Jetpack and through Hacking Music is the idea of living on planet reality. There's a lot of, let's say, hopeful thinking out there, and that's important. You want to believe that you can change the world, and I believe you can. But at the same time, it's also important to wrestle things down to earth and really tell yourself the truth about where you are and where your career is and how you get to where you want to be. Okay, so let's look through a couple lenses here for the 3 gears. So at the bottom of the section here is developing artists. These are baby artists, figuring out who they are, what their instrument is, maybe their songs, touring for the first time, maybe making a couple records. They're figuring it out, right? And then we have, in the middle, we have deploying artists. These are artists that are up and running, doing it. They're creating a thing, right? They're not baby artists that figured that out. Maybe they have, figured out touring, figured out sync, figuring out their team. They're creating a thing that could be a dominating artist at the top. So these are the thoroughbreds. These are the headliners. These are the people that are firing on all the 16 sections we just looked at. So developing artists, deploying artists, and dominating artists. So let's look at a couple of filters here. So developing artists are just kind of figuring out team. Maybe it's them and a believer, who really loves what they do. Deploying artists have a team. It's maybe 3 to 5 people, and they're working together. Dominating artists have, a stronger team that's even, 10 to 15 people. Let's look at this through the lens of touring. So maybe that developing artist is touring locally, and the deploying artist is maybe touring regionally, and that dominating artist is national and international. Let's look at this through the lens of revenues. So developing artists are kind of investing in their career. They really probably haven't figured out a way to drive revenue. Deploying artists are generating revenue. They may not be at 6 figures yet, but they're putting some revenue points on the board. Dominating artists will be profitable across dozens of revenue streams, okay? Let's look at this through the lens of leverage. Developing artists will have really no leverage as they enter into deals and build their career. Deploying artists will have some leverage. They're doing it, they're a thing. They're not just aspirational. They're kind of figuring some things out and it's fun. Dominating artists will have a ton of leverage. Taylor Swift, when she completed her deal at Big Machine, she was a free agent. So imagine the leverage she had in her deal at Universal. She could kind of name it and claim it. Whatever she wanted, she got in that deal. And we've got friends at Big Machine. We've got friends at Universal. Nothing personal against any of them. This is about thinking strategically about the career. So why is this important for you as an artist? It's important for a couple of reasons. And the first is that it's you against you. Artists don't automatically get better. You have to do the hard things to get better. Secondly, you have to be where you are. We don't want you to bullshit and say, oh, I'm a dominating artist. No, you need to be where you are. If you're a developing artist, own that. There's no harm, no shame in that. We work with artists, all three of these kind of artists, the dominating Hall of Famer, people in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, to deploying artists, to developing artists. Don't let your ego get ahead of you. Just be where you are. If you're developing, that's a beautiful thing. Be there. Be where your feet are there. And another thing that's interesting here, sometimes this doesn't have anything to do with talent. And what I mean by that is there are dominating artists who can't sing their way out of a wet paper bag, who can't write songs to save their life. And that's okay. They've figured out that they don't have to be the songwriter. They don't have to be the super singer. So this, you have baby artists, you have deploying artists, dominating artists. This sometimes doesn't have anything to do with talent. Yes, you want to make great art, but there are so many people at the dominating tier who are moderately talented at best, we'll say. All right, so let's do this. So I want to, so for you, I want you to go through these 16 items here that we talked through. And the action item is this. I want you to kind of map out what your strength is on your team. So for the developing art, it could just be song and recording. For the deploying artist, maybe it's these 6 things here. And for a dominating artist, they will be firing across all 16 of these modules here. Let me grab a cable real quick. That's my phone needs a little juice. All right, so so it's important here to compete with where you are today, not to. One second. Where you can be years from now, okay? All right, we have developing. Okay, so as we step through this training, I want you to be honest with where you are and where you want to be. I want you to, tell yourself and tell me kind of where you land. Are you a developing artist? Are you a deploying artist? Or are you a dominating artist? No shame in being any of these 3. We want to live on planet reality. We want to wrestle this stuff down to the earth. Great. All right, so that completes section 4 the three gears: developing, deploying, and dominating artists. So let's move into the next section here. The entertainment ecosystem. All right, so our good friend Finbar O'Hanlon said this. He said, so who's who in the zoo? Who does what? Who are the players? And how do we identify them? So the benefits of this framework is that we want you to know the ground game that we're playing. We don't want you to be surprised in the ground game. We want you to really understand the game that's being played. We want you to know who the other players are and their roles, and what their roles are. We don't want you to think everybody's the same, okay? In chess, there are kings, queens, knights. So we want to move from playing checkers to move into playing chess. And that's where this entertainment ecosystem really helps us see the ground game here. We're going to look at a play and a pattern match that Jay-Z did as he moved through all four of these. And lastly, it benefits you to where you can see kind of how your career can grow through this entertainment ecosystem. All right, so let's look at the four boxes here. So we have the enthusiast, we have the technician, we have the asset collector, and we have the scalable innovator. Okay, so let's talk about each of these. So the enthusiast is typically a non-professional in the music industry, such as a fan, a blogger, or YouTuber, a student, or a supporter of musicians. They are super vocal and quick to express their opinions, whether it is to other music fans or in the case of enthusiasts who are on social media. The enthusiast is deeply affected by the trends and daily whims of pop culture. You can see this a lot on YouTube. They really don't have a business model, but they have a megaphone and they can talk about stuff forever. They are like super believers. Quadrant 2 is the technician. Okay, these are the service providers in the music industry, or the artists. They're paid on a per project basis for the work spanning a limited period of time. This could be doing a show, this could be making a record. This group includes studio musicians, voice performance instructors, attorneys, designers, PR firms. This is a tentative work environment in that the technician has to juggle to constantly search for new business and fresh clients and the next gig. And in this case of the pandemic, most of these technicians are shut down. There's no touring going on, and it's not a great thing for the people in this box. All right, so quadrant 3 is the asset collector. The asset collector is looking to discover, develop, and monetize content and IP. All right, with the intention of someday possibly selling those properties at a peak profit. The asset collector is successful in their business ventures because they are not overly emotionally attached to the IP. This could be a publishing company, a record label, anything that owns IP. Quadrant 4 is the scalable innovator. So we're seeing this more and more as tech platforms become part of the music marketplace. The scalable innovator identifies a massive void within the industry and creates a technology solution to fill it. The scalable innovator finds greatest success when he or she can predict future shifts in the marketplace, build and develop a product that addresses that need, and have the technology firing on all cylinders before the rest of the industry has an opportunity to catch up with them. The technology requires having in place a broader team, sales reps, developers, marketing experts. Much like the asset collector, the scalable innovator's goal is to eventually sell their IP at a peak profit. If thousands of people can use your technology at any single time, you fall into this category, the scalable innovator quadrant. Scalable innovators include people like Pandora founder Tim Westergren, Ditto music founder Lee Parsons, Those are a couple examples. All right, so these are the people on the chessboard. You're going to be working with them, collaborating with all four of these. So this is helpful in pulling up to 50,000 feet to know who's who in the zoo. All right, so let's kind of drill down on each of these. Enthusiasts, bloggers, super fans, fueled by passion, dedication, and connection that don't really have a business model. To technicians, paid for services rendered, paid per project as an expert, paid only when working. To Q3s, the asset collector, develops or collects a critical mass of content that grows more valuable over time. To the scalable innovator, platform that hundreds of thousands of people can use at the same time. So let's, this is a breakout that kind of shows more data around each of these. You can go through this over the next couple of weeks. Yeah, I think it'll be helpful as you understand more of the four roles here. So let's shift into a case study. I hate the word case study. It's a play. This is a play from the playbook. And we're going to look at how Jay-Z moved through all four of these quadrants, okay? These quadrants: enthusiast, technician, asset collector, and scalable innovator. So probably most of us are familiar with some of Jay-Z's business and successes and failures. So let's talk about this. So a small portion of music artists find a way to climb to the level of scalable innovator. One of these artists is music icon Jay-Z. He has used his considerable influence, name, and marketing power to build or buy into multiple companies. Let's examine what Jay-Z's journey through each of these four quadrants may have looked like. Okay? So let's define pattern matching here again. Pattern matching is a way to understand what an artist has done before you in order to better replicate that for yourself. So the takeaway here is to introduce you and begin to understand the idea of pattern matching, and to where Jay-Z was the example here. Okay. So Jay-Z did it, but the takeaway is not just, oh, isn't Jay-Z great? The takeaway is how you can do it better. Pattern matching is the study, watching of how others did something, and then to pattern match after them. So this is the play. Jay-Z did this over the last 30 years. He started out as an enthusiast, as a kid. That grew into a technician. Then that graduated into the asset collector. And then he graduated into the scalable innovator. This is a play that is becoming more and more common in the music and media space. Artists are not just songwriters sitting on a stool anymore. Artists are entrepreneurs, and that is really one of the tenets of the hacking music system. We believe artists are entrepreneurs foundationally. So this play is common. Let's kind of step through this case study with Jay-Z and understand the play he made in doing this. All right. So here's our friend Jay-Z. Quadrant one is Jay-Z as the enthusiast. It's well known that as a young boy in the mid-'80s, Jay-Z had a budding interest in music long before he began to actually produce any. This was his figuring it out phase, something everybody goes through and hopefully everybody comes out of. He was, he early in his years, he was a drug dealer. He was figuring it out. He was an enthusiast. It was during these early years, growing up in New York's Marcy projects, that his life and experience first fueled his passion for music. Really didn't have a business model. He knew he loved it, but he didn't understand it. And, he made some early mistakes in being a drug dealer. Okay. All right. Quadrant two is Jay-Z as the technician. In the early 90s, Jay-Z began to both perform live and record his music as a profession. If he worked, he was paid. Okay, this is the technician part of it, him going on stage to do a show. All right. Stage 3, quadrant 3, is the asset collector. So Jay-Z, as the asset collector with no major label to give him a record deal, Jay-Z sold CDs out of his car. And in 96, Jay-Z teamed up with Kareem Biggs and Damon Dash to found Rockefeller Records. Okay. Previously, Jay-Z was just an artist performing as an artist and had very little control over his catalog, let alone the catalog of others. Now, as a label owner, he had total creative control for himself and business control not only over his assets, but for the assets of those artists he chose to invest in. Artists like Just Blaze, Kanye West, and Judakis were discovered. Jay-Z evolved from the technician to the asset collector. And part of pattern matching is not caring about genre. It doesn't matter if you love hip hop. We want to see the pattern around this more so than if we're a fan of Jay-Z or not. Okay. So that is Jay-Z in quadrant 3. And let's look at quadrant 4 here. So Jay-Z is a scalable innovator. In March of 2015, Jay and a group of investors purchased a Norwegian music company called Aspero. The company had launched a music streaming service called Tidal just a year earlier, and Jay-Z and his group of investors immediately kicked off a massive campaign to rebrand and relaunch Tidal. Separate of his music venture, Jay-Z has also reached outside the realm of music to team up with Bill Gates. So this is the play. Jay-Z started from an enthusiast, he went to technician, asset collector, and scalable innovator. And don't get overwhelmed with this. I'm not expecting you to 2 weeks from now turn into a scalable innovator. Again, we want to see the pattern here. This is about pattern matching and knowing that over the next 3, 5, 10 years, this is a play that you want to be aware of. You don't want to go blindly into this. You want to know that this is a common thread that artists go through. Okay, so like other artists making their way through all 4 quadrants of the entertainment ecosystem matrix, Jay-Z followed this N-shaped pattern from quadrant to quadrant. Other artists do this as well. Similar career paths include Todd Rundgren, Les Paul, Kiss, Harold Bradley, Chet Atkins, Garth Brooks, Eddie Van Halen, Taylor Swift. Future artists working to see similar success will learn to be comfortable with business collaboration spanning all 4 quadrants. Okay, this is the chessboard we're playing with here. These artists will be equally adept at making an album and to making a company. All right, so that is the entertainment ecosystem. Really not an action item on this. This is more of a play that I want you to put in your pipe and become very aware of as you're going to map your career over the next 3, 5, 10 years. All right. So let's hit the coffee. Does Starbucks deliver? I need to have them send a medicine ball or coffee here. All right. So section 6, we're going to step into. This is the content versus platform section. This is very foundational to the hacking music training. So let's talk a little bit about content and platform. These are the 2 legs of the table that every artist has to balance. So the fact that the internet and social media have now become such driving forces in everyday life has prompted radical changes in the way the music industry operates. Everything is digital now, especially post-COVID with shows being eliminated. Everything is digital and your digital footprint matters. So the tools needed to develop and sustain a music career are now available for artists willing to use them and grow their own platforms. With that being the case, many labels no longer look only for musical talent. Instead, they seek both talent and platform, this organized business plan in which the label can co-invest and add additional resources. And we're going to talk a lot more about this in the doing deals module. What does all this mean for the artist? It means that it is now more important than ever for the artist to learn how to balance the creation of music with the efficient operation of their business, their platform. The first step in understanding what the two elements are and how they serve the artists as pillars upon which their business is supported, content and platform, the two legs that all artists have to balance here. So this is our table. That piece of stone is your career, and content's on the left and platform's on the right. You want both legs happening correctly. So in this section, we want to add some clarity as to how these two legs relate to one another, how artists prioritize them, and how different artists approach each of these. And maybe most important is how you can build both sides of these better for yourself. Okay, so let's define content. Content is anything that tells a story and is consumed by your fans. These are the songs that are written, EPs, videos, music. This is generally the fun and sexy stuff that most artists love to do. It's awesome. It's fun. It's great being in the studio. It's great writing. And as we flip it and look at the other leg of the table, platform encompasses anything that supports, strengthens, and sells that content. Okay? All right. So let's look at developing aspirational baby artists here. Developing artists, that's artists at the bottom of the triangle, are super focused on content. They love making it. They're focused. They're in the studio. They're doing it. And they really ignore the platform side of their business. And this used to work for artists in the 90s. There used to be songwriters. There's still songwriters, but you can't just concentrate on content. You have to have a platform as well. Whereas if we flip it and we look at professional artists, there's a balance between the content leg of the table and the platform leg of the table. And another way to look at this is through the lens of legacy artists. Legacy artists are people like Chicago, Jimmy Buffett. They've had their career. Now they're just kind of thinking about legacy here. So they're not really interested in any new content. They're just kind of keeping their platform. I think Steven Tyler from Aerosmith said, why do we want to make another record if nobody's going to buy it? So he's kind of, Aerosmith has moved over into this platform only legacy artist. Okay, so let's look at how the two of these need each other. And we go much deeper with our private artists we work with, but just to begin with, there's the elements of content on the left and the elements of platform on the right. Okay. Content, we have recordings, videos, music publishing, product, and story. Okay. And then on the right, we have touring history, digital footprint, social media engagement, maybe e-commerce is over here, partner relationships. This is all kind of the blocking and tackling the platform side of an artist's career. And when these two meet, and as an artist turns into a dominating artist, there's this thing at the top that is really beautiful. And it's this thing we call fan trust. They know the artist, they've engaged with the artist, they know that what he puts out next or she puts out next is going to be great. So they're already kind of pre-sold on the artist. Artists here, kind of, you can think of Taylor. Taylor has both that content and platform. Tim McGraw could be kind of in this side. I think of Coheed and Cambria, the rock band. Got great content, data's firing, and they've got a strong platform as well. Okay, so let's look at this for ourselves as we think about where you will build your career and where you will grow your career. So on the left, we have content. We have little content at the bottom and a lot of content at the top. And on the bottom, we have platform. Small amount of platform on the left and a lot of platform at the right. All right, so quadrant one, this is the quadrant of death. These are baby artists who are just starting. Really hard place to be. No content and no platform, really. And up in quadrant two, we have behind the scenes artists, maybe a producer, maybe a songwriter, where they're just making, and they really ignore the platform side of their business. So Q3 is legacy artists. Maybe they've had their career and now they're really not interested in building out more content. They just want to kind of go make money. Nothing wrong with that at all. We work with artists that are there. But up and to the right, this is where I want you to become aware of the importance of this quadrant here. These are the thoroughbreds, okay? These are the artists that understand content and understand platform. This is where you want to be, up and to the right. All right, so a couple examples of each. Songwriters in Q2, Aerosmith, Jimmy Buffett, Chicago, Elvis. The Eagles are over here in Q3. And up and to the right, Tim McGraw, Taylor Swift, Coheed, Cambria, kind of fall into this box here. All right, so here's what I want you to do. The action item for this section is this. I want you to map your content and platform ratio. I want you to map where you're focusing your energies. I want you to list two things here. I want you to list the content you've developed over the last, let's say, year on the left. And I want you to list the platform components that you've developed over the last year. And I kind of want you to beat yourself up here. No bullshit, no secrets and no surprises. You know, most likely you will be hard left. Content, and not a lot of platform. It's no shame in that, but I want you to take your temperature and understand kind of where you're planting your career. I don't want you to be surprised that you're not in Q4. I want you to be aware of that, and I want you this to serve as a decision-making tool for how you focus your time. Okay? James Brown said this, and this was, I don't know, 70s or 80s, whenever he said it. 75% business, 25% music. And this was back in the heyday of the record industry. Obviously, the world has shifted and changed much since then. So think of how, if he said this 75-25 20 years ago, it may be even further, maybe 80-20. So that is the content and platform section of the training for today. Again, we go much deeper into greater detail with our private clients, but I just wanted to kind of introduce you guys to this as a decision-making tool. You're going to be investing your time. You got 24 hours a day, same amount of time as Beyonce has. Let's be smart about where we're investing our hours here. All right, so let's move into section 7. This is the time and talent matrix. Okay, like the balancing act in content and platform, both are important. You need both. We're going to use this. We're going to look at another balancing act between time and talent, the length of a career and the amount of talent artists have and how you have and what you have. So, all right, so we're going to do 3 things in this section. We're going to look at a tool and understand this tool for understanding an artist's career and what kind of decisions they made that got them there. The action item you're going to do over the next 2 weeks is a genre drill down. in your genre, whether it's hip hop, rap, country, metal, whatever. Pick your genre, and you're going to do this in your genre. And then thirdly, we're going to pattern match this as you build your career. So it's how it's going to apply to you. All right. So everything has a destination. This is something we say a lot. The decisions you make today affect the you of next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. From what you think about today, from what you act on today, who you partner with today, all affects who you will become, and in a large part, the level of success you will achieve. Everything matters and everything has a destination. For an artist, every action taken on that journey will have one of two effects. Either it will grow and benefit your career, or it will limit the artist and diminish them. Be it positively or negatively, what you do today will undoubtedly affect the you of next year and the you of years to come. The list of things that can impact a music career is a long one. Some are obvious: the music that's created, the staging of the concert, how the artist treats their fans, while others require more digging: business decisions, strategic decision-making, team building, execution, market conditions. Many artists have discovered ways to sustain longer and longer careers and remain relevant for several decades. But the music business has also seen countless one-hit wonders rise and fall from the national spotlight within just a few months. So this leaves many people asking a very important question. And that question is, what did an artist do that resulted in them having the career they had? Let me repeat that again. What did an artist do that resulted in them having the career they had? Supergroups, jam bands, solo artists will make thousands of decisions a week. So we want to use this tool, the Time and Talent Matrix, to begin to answer that very important question. It's a tool that frames an analysis of the decisions made by artists, the career milestones they enjoyed, the mistakes that were made, and the state of the music marketplace along the way. Why is doing this so important? Because understanding the steps taken by both past and current artists, both positive and negative, can help the next generation of artists better map out their own career. And that's what we're going to do. All right. So this benefits you in a really important way. As you continue to build your career, you'll be making hundreds of decisions weekly. Most of them will be made under limited constraints, with limited resources, and under stress. So this helps you stand on the shoulders of giants and let one person's hindsight become your foresight. We say this often, there's not one big answer. There are thousands of smaller questions, each with the right answer. So let's start to unpack this tool. So the Time and Talent Matrix. The horizontal axis of the chart is labeled time. This refers to the length of an artist's career. Okay, could have a short career, could have a long career at the right. The boxes on the left are reserved for the artists with a bulk of the recording careers lasting less than 5 years, as well as one-hit wonders. The boxes on the right are reserved for artists with careers spanning decades. You can think of an artist who comes to mind there who has had 30 or 40 years. The vertical axis of the chart is labeled talent. This axis can be applied to just about anything regarding an artist: instrumental skill, lyric writing, songwriting, performance abilities, voice, whatever. It's the kind of internal talent that they have. Okay. All right. So as we go through these, I want you to think of an artist who comes to mind in each of these quadrants. So let's step through each of these. Q1 artists: low talent, low time, right? Quadrant 1 will reflect artists who have had short careers in the context of mainstream exposure. They aren't considered abundantly talented. Many of them are one-hit wonders. Think of an artist who comes to mind for you. Q2 artists. Q2 is comprised of artists widely considered to be extremely talented, but who have seen their time in the national spotlight cut short for one of many possible reasons. You can think of an artist who fits in there. Q3 artists, low talent and high time. Q3 consists of artists with limited musical talent, Q3 consists of artists with limited musical talent, but have managed to have a long career. Many of them have done this through community building and smart decision making. They weren't the most talented of the groups, but they figured it out and they made decisions that really stretched out their career to better serve themselves. So Q4 artists up and to the right are high talent and high time. These will be comprised of artists who are considered to be among the most successful artists of all time. These artists have extensive catalog of hit songs and careers that have spanned multiple decades and even generations, and will be listened to long after they are no longer with us. So who are some artists that come to mind in each of these quadrants? Let's look at how we answer that here. So Q1, and again, this is not meant to, let's take off our fan hat, our subjective hat, and really put on our strategic management hat as we talk about artists. It's nothing negative about any of these artists. It's just a way to kind of put them in boxes and to better map decisions for ourselves here. So Q1, low talent, low time. We go with the Sex Pistols, limited talent and a brief career. I happen to love the Sex Pistols, nothing negative about them. They fit, they're kind of the poster child for Q1. Q2 box is, we go with Lauryn Hill, super talented artist, but a surprisingly brief career. Okay. Quadrant 3, we go with the Grateful Dead. Limited musical talent, some may say, but an amazing career length. I personally, nothing worse than jam bands for me, myself personally, but we're going to use them as an example here. Amazing career length for sure, the Grateful Dead. And they did a ton of things right outside of just the music side of it. Q4, we go with Journey. Talented musically, more than 40-year career length. Okay. So these are kind of the poster children for each. Sex Pistols, Lauryn Hill, Grateful Dead, and Journey. All right, so the action item is this. What I want you to do before the next module is to take this time and talent matrix, and with whatever genre you're in, if you're metal, rap, country, whatever, I want you to fill in the blanks with music artists who relate to your genre. Okay. So when analyzing the time and talent matrix, artists should always be on the lookout for patterns, behaviors, and decision-making that can move them closer to Q4. That's where you want to be, and those are the decisions you want to make that put you in that high talent, high time quadrant, up and to the right. So as you deconstruct artists in your genre, you want to think through the decisions that put them there. Were they divas? Were they messing with drugs? Were they making dumb decisions? Did they have a crappy team around them? All those things, you know, if you're a rap artist, you know, you're going to understand the rap genre better than somebody not in that genre. So you're going to deconstruct the artists that go into each box and understand the decisions that they made that put them there. All right, so some of the questions that you want to ask, and I'll send this to you on the email here following the training today. Some of the questions you want to ask: on what did these artists focus their energy that landed them in their quadrant? Question 2, what important things did an artist miss overlook, or ignore that could have helped them move their career forward? What important things did an artist intentionally set aside that helped them concentrate on the more critical aspects of their career? So what are the things that they just kind of ignore? Number 4, how are these artists affected positively or negatively by the choices they made? What responsibilities do developing artists have to deal with today that were not factors in previous eras, 80s, 90s? You know, the world's changed. So those are 5 questions there. And the next questions are here. What did the artist purposely create that didn't previously exist? Important question. What creative or business patterns can be seen that common between artists in each quadrant? What differentiates artists in each quadrant as the opposing 3? What was the state of the music business during the artist's high time? You have to take that into account. The 80s are gone, the 90s are gone, you know, it's the 2020s. And what new ground did the artist break, either creatively or professionally, that landed them in their box? Were they innovators, or were they just kind of clones of other artists? So those are 10 questions. I want you to take time to reflect upon those questions and to discuss them with you and your team, okay? So that's the action item there. So in this section, we did three things. We looked at a tool for understanding artists' careers. We had 2 action items. You're going to do a genre drill down and for an artist in your genre, and you're going to plug and play those 4 quadrants and answer those questions. And then maybe the most important thing is you're going to pattern match this as you build your career. You're going to think about what decisions did the artists make that you can learn from, how their hindsight can be your foresight. We don't want to make mistakes on our own. We want to learn from other people's mistakes. And there's much to learn from. All right. So we've got a few minutes left here. Let's go into section 8. The difference between strategy and tactics. This is another thing that we'll reference often. Strategy and tactics. All right. So we have developing, deploying, and dominating artists. So this is what kind of frames the section. You got to think about the big things while you do the small things, so that the small things go in the right direction. Say that again. You got to think about the big things while you're doing the small things, so that all the small things go in the right direction. So developing artists really don't understand this concept. Deploying artists begin to understand strategy and tactics, and dominating artists are masters of strategy and tactics, okay? So wherever you are in this, I want you to kind of start to digest the importance of strategy and tactics, and we're definitely going to build on this throughout the training modules, okay? All right, so this is from the book. Let me go through this. So there's a common misconception amongst music artists that strategy and tactics in the music business are the same thing. They definitely are not. How can we tell the difference between the two? It's helpful to think about strategy and tactics in the context of altitude. Metaphorically speaking, strategy usually occurs at 50,000 feet, while tactics normally happen on the ground level. This is the execution and the day-to-day doing. If strategy were a body part, it would be the head, and the tactics would be the hands and the feet. Strategy would encompass the who, what, when, and where, and in what order. Tactics would encompass the achievement of the task itself. In the past, it's been super common for strategy to be so high level and conceptual that it never gets anything accomplished. And on the tactical side, it's been common to just get so busy doing that you never pull up high enough to define the best roadmap forward in the sequence in your planning to get there. Previously, these have been incorrectly seen as mutually exclusive. They don't overlap. We see this as totally incorrect and self-sabotaging because strategy and tactics must coexist and be aligned for a business to grow. They are sisters and they could not be more connected. So we like to think of them as locked like this. Here's your tactics and here's your strategy. You want them to be integrated. All right, so let's think of strategy for a minute here. So think in terms of trying to land a plane at a busy airport. The air traffic controller, the strategy, decides on what runway and in what order the planes will land. The pilot, the tactics here, are responsible for the actual landing of the plane. Both are essential and both support and trust one another. This is an incredibly important marriage between air traffic control and the pilots. You don't want to screw that up, right? You want to trust, you want to have integrity, you want to have clarity as you operate. You need each other. Then, as we think about tactics, imagine hundreds of 747s circling in a holding pattern above DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. All the pilots want to land their plane based solely on what they see outside the cockpit windshield and without any guidance from traffic control. It would be an absolute disaster. The vast majority of music artists approach their career in the same manner, focusing on what is urgent at that particular moment. The air traffic control, the person is responsible for ordering all planes, is responsible for the strategy. And the pilot of the plane is responsible for the tactic or the task of landing the plane. Okay, so that's a great way to think about strategies. Strategy is high level, 50,000 feet. Tactics are the execution, the boots on the ground. And baby artists are like this or even like this. They just do tactics, do. But deploying and dominating artists have that alignment to where their strategy is informing their tactics and they're operating and zig and zagging at the same time. It's kind of like a flock of geese. If you've ever seen them, how they fly together. It's a beautiful thing because they're all kind of going in the right direction at the right time. So strategy makes up why, when, what, and with whom. In the airport example, this would be the traffic controller taking over and coordinating the landing of all planes in a specific order on specific runways at specific times with no errors. Okay. Tactics are how you do the tasks that must happen to actually land the plane. All right, so here's a graph that kind of goes into greater detail. You can go through this. We're getting short on time here, so go through this. This is in the book as well. And I know a handful of you just signed up in the last week, so those books are on the way. So you should see them here, in the next week or so. Very important as we're going to build a career is understanding strategy and tactics. All right, so with that, let's do this because we're finishing up here for this module. 5 silver bullets. We kind of covered that on the welcome webinar, so I don't want to go over that again. So with that, let's kind of button up this training module. What you can expect next is we're going to be meeting 2 weeks from now at the same time. You will get an email with the details for that section. You'll want to read the book. You want to go over you want to complete the action items before then, and you'll want to go through as many of the IQ points before then. So with that, I want to thank everybody for jumping on. I'll be jumping on the Facebook group. If you haven't requested membership there, we're going to be sharing some things every couple days there. And with that, thank you for jumping on and joining the training. I'm excited about what's in front of you, and I'm excited about seeing you succeed, not only in the webinar, but through your career. So you'll get a summary email here this time tomorrow that it will have the action items for you to complete. All right. Thanks so much, and I look forward to seeing you on the Facebook group in 2 weeks from now on the next module training. See you then.